Welcome, everyone. It's so great to see so many people here. This is the candidate forum for U.S. Representative, 15th District, a new Congressional District. And we're happy to welcome Supervisor David Canepa and Assemblymember Kevin Mullin. I am Petra Silton, the Senior Director of Programs for Thrive, the Alliance of Nonprofits for San Mateo County. Welcome. My colleague Yahaira Ortega will explain how to access the Spanish interpretation and the live captioning.
To hear this forum in Spanish, you will click the interpretation logo on the right-hand side. Para escuchar este foro en español, haga el clic en el icono de globo a la derecha. Now, to turn on your real-time transcription, click the More button on the bottom right to enable the live transcript.
Thank you, Yahaira. Thrive is a trusted network of over 200 nonprofit organizations, government entities, foundations, businesses, and community leaders with a shared commitment to strengthening the nonprofit sector, thereby improving the quality of life in San Mateo County. Thrive unites the voice and the influence of nonprofits, helping build their capacity and enables effective cross-sector collaboration. We're co-hosting this event with several of our member organizations, including the Center for Independence of Individuals with Disabilities, AbilityPath, Caminar, Citizens Climate Lobby, Fresh Lifelines for Youth, and Northeast Medical Services. Thrive is a nonpartisan and non-endorsing organization. We developed this series of forums in conjunction with our membership. The purpose is to give the candidates running for the Congressional District 15 the opportunity to introduce themselves to voters and present their positions specifically on the most pressing issues for our nonprofits and their communities. The other purpose is to highlight the excellent work of our nonprofit members. Thrive values voter engagement and voter turnout, and this is one of the many ways that Thrive encourages greater civic participation. We invite you to join us in our other upcoming candidate forums, which you can find on our website, or to join us in our other efforts to increase voter participation. I'd like to briefly tell you about a couple of things that are coming up at Thrive that we're very excited about. So first of all, we have 2 more candidate forums coming up. One, there we go, for Board of Supervisors District 2 on September 20th, and that will be in person. Next. There we go. And then Board of Supervisors District 3, also in person on September 27th. And then we will be doing a pros and cons with the League of Women Voters. As we all know, they're experts at that, on October 13th, and that will be virtual. And then if you're interested in continuing the work that we're doing on voter engagement, we have the Voter Education and Outreach Advisory Committee monthly meeting, but the September one is going to be especially focused on coordinating all of the outreach that many of our CBOs are doing, but everybody is welcome to come to that. We have a couple other exciting things in the works. Having an education summit for leaders in out of school time and school districts. And on October 3rd, we'll be doing a climate summit for San Mateo County. This is the first year that we've ever had a climate summit for the entire county. We're co-hosting with climate resilient communities, Nuestra Casa and Ride South City, to really build a collective commitment to ensure climate adaptation and equity. And we invite you to learn more about that at our website. And the last thing I want to let you know about that Thrive is doing a new program called Thrive Rise, Resilience in Shared Emergencies. And much more information will be coming about that. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me or any of the Thrive staff. And with that, we will start our event. So this event will be recorded in English and in Spanish and will be available on Thrive's YouTube channel and our website. So if anybody misses this, there will be plenty of opportunities to find out what happened. I'd like to do a land acknowledgement. So we respectfully acknowledge that the land where our work takes place is on the ancestral and unceded land of the Ramaytush Ohlone. So the format for this afternoon's forum is as follows. Each candidate will start with a 1.5-minute introduction. The order of these introductions will be alphabetical. Each of our co-hosting organizations will introduce themselves, then ask a question of the candidates. The candidates will each have 60 seconds to answer and then a 30-second rebuttal. About halfway through, we'll have a series of short answer questions. Those will have 30-second answers. And then at the conclusion of the questions, each candidate will have a 1.5-minute closing statement. We solicited the questions in advance from our partner organizations, so we will not be taking any additional questions at this time from the audience. And our chat function has been disabled in order to make sure that we keep this a non-endorsing and a non-partisan event. So at this time, I'd like to welcome the candidates in alphabetical order, Supervisor David Canepa and Assembly Member Kevin Mullin. I asked them before we started how they would like to be addressed, and they said casual is fine. So we're going to go with David and Kevin. Really appreciate that. And we will go ahead and give David the floor for his opening statement.
Great, thank you so much, Petra. And let me just say, I'm absolutely delighted to be here. And let me thank Thrive and the partner agencies for their incredible work. I'm a 4th generation San Mateo County resident. And the reason I'm running for Congress is I want to bring the middle class back to the county. As mentioned, I've lived here for 46 years. I've lived through a pandemic. We all have lived through a pandemic. But one of the things that I've learned, and I was the president of the Board of Supervisors, is that we can't do it alone. We have to work together. We have to work with agencies such as Thrive. We have to work with cities and counties. And I'm proud of the work that the County of San Mateo has done during the pandemic when it comes to public health. But one of the things we realized, and we realized right away, the generational gap that has taken place amongst communities. We live in the 3rd wealthiest county in the United States of America. However, we have places where people can't get Wi-Fi, where we have over 1,500 people that go unhoused, where we're dealing with issues of people around mental health. And one of the things that we've dealt with this issue is how as a county, how do we respond? How to respond to small businesses that went out of business during the pandemic. Well, the county has been able to work on programs, and these programs have been focused on making sure people are housed, making sure that people have the ability to access mental health services, making sure that we provide people who don't have food or who are food insecure, that we make them food secure. These are the issues that we've dealt with in the pandemic and that we'll continue to deal with. But my unique experience in crisis and the hundreds of supporters who support me throughout this county positions me to lead as your congressperson.
Thank you.
Day one. Thank you.
Kevin?
Thank you, Petra. Thank you, David, and everyone assembled. Honored to be with all of you today. I want to start with a quick apology about my appearance. I had a little bit of a bike accident, but not an interesting one where I was actually on the road. I was lifting my bike off of the hooks in my garage and banged my face up a little bit, but the show must go on. Honored to be with all of you today. Thank you for the opportunity to join you. And thank you, Thrive, for the incredible work that you and your member organizations do. The theme of my campaign for Congress is fighting for our future, because I believe our democracy and our planet are in peril. And we have an economy that our children will inherit that really only works for elites. We must have an economy in this country that works for everyone. And our freedoms are under attack from a rogue Supreme Court. I will be a champion for reproductive rights and freedoms as your next member of Congress. For the last decade, I have represented you in the California State Assembly. I wrote and passed more than 60 bills into law, including the first law for all vote by mail elections and the first of its kind Disclose Act to ban dark money in California elections. I'm also proud of being the architect of a $3.7 billion climate resilience package and created One Shoreline, our sea level rise district here in the county. I've delivered major dollars to the peninsula to address a whole range of issues. I've served as a mayor, a council member, small business owner, now as a speaker pro tem of the assembly, and proud to be endorsed by Congresswoman Jackie Spear as her successor, as well as the California Democratic Party. Look forward to being with you and sharing a few more notes about my credentials to represent you in Congress, and pleasure to be with all of you today.
Thank you. I'm going to go straight into questions. So Kevin and David, the way we're going to do this is Georgia Farouk, our executive director, is going to be asking you a question, and Kevin, you will have 1 minute to answer. And then David, you'll have 1 minute to answer, and then you'll each have a chance for a 30-second rebuttal.
Good afternoon, and so great to have you both here. Thank you. I'm Georgia Farouk. I'm the executive director of Thrive, which you know is the Alliance of Nonprofits for all of San Mateo County. And Thrive is thrilled to be hosting this forum with our partners. And we thank you both again for your participation and also for your continued support of the nonprofit sector. It does not go unnoticed. So thank you. The San Mateo County nonprofit sector, as you well know, which we represent, stepped up during the period of the pandemic, and it continues to provide many essential services for San Mateo County's most vulnerable populations. Some CBO of services they provided, sometimes without the commensurate funding, with after-school care becoming a school, huge increases in food distribution, the lines we all know about, and in mental health counseling and additional advocacy around evictions, which continues with being led by our partners. Many added new services, such as providing education on COVID vaccines were added, and that is something that Thrive has been very active in supporting nonprofits to kind of build up that work as well. There are questions. Although funding through the American Rescue Plan, affectionately known as ARPA, and generous, nonprofits are concerned about sustainability. We're always concerned about sustainability, but this time we're really, really concerned. So what happens when the ARPA funding runs out, but the need is still there? And how do we continue to spur innovation through initiatives such as the Economic Advancement Center in South San Francisco? What would you do in Washington to support the essential and creative collaborative work of nonprofits in the 15th Congressional District?
Thank you, Georgia, for the question. Thank you for your incredible work, especially during a pandemic, during a time of crisis. We were all reliant, dependent on the work of so many nonprofits in San Mateo County. We always like to say in politics, small businesses are the backbone of the economy. Well, the nonprofit community is quite literally the backbone of our San Mateo County community. I have great respect for the work that's done. So the question about sustainability, we need ongoing federal assistance. Community development block grant is an ongoing funding stream, but we need continued levels of support from the federal government. I have a proven track record of delivering dollars back to San Mateo County. We're a donor county. We send more tax money to Washington than we get back. We need to get our share of tax money here, given the importance of this area to the national economy. I would just say sometimes we're a victim of our own success because there's a lot of wealth being generated in San Mateo County. We aren't able to access certain funds. I've been working on changing funding formulas at the state level to better reflect cost of living. As you know, we're the epicenter of the affordability crisis, and I'll continue to work those issues.
Great. Thank you so much, Georgia. You know, one of the things you bring up a very, very important point. You know, you think about the county, we've given in total COVID relief funds, if you can imagine, about $250 million plus. And where do those dollars go? Well, the nonprofit relief grants, 190 grants approved. That's remarkable. But what we can't do is just turn the faucet off. That's absolutely wrong. It's egregious, because you have to understand the people we serve, and we've served in the pandemic and we serve now, the need has only gotten greater. The need is escalating. So we look at the food support. We have a wonderful wonderful partnership with Second Harvest. These are things that we have to double down. And when I talk about bringing the middle class back, it's all about the investment on the front end. This county has tremendous wealth. Where I live, we're not as wealthy as some of these other places. I see people's
Thank you.
day-to-day needs. Thank you.
Kevin, 30 seconds.
Well, I'm going to be generous here and applaud David and the supervisors in this county for their work during the pandemic to partner with agencies across the county. One thing I fought for at the state level was the creation of a definition that's applied to funding formulas called under-resourced communities, where San Mateo County might not always get disadvantaged communities dollars. We are including definitions now, under-resourced communities, that better reflect the cost of living we have here in this county. That's the kind of thing I'm going to continue to work at on the federal level to make sure that we are properly supporting this nonprofit infrastructure in San Mateo County.
Great. That was very, thank you, Kevin. That was very gracious of you. The thing I worry about every day is we have in the state of California, we have about 150,000 people that go unhoused. I think what I'm acutely focused on is how do we, in the county, we're doing it. We purchased around 5 hotels. We now have the navigation center. But what we do here, what can we do on a grand scale? You can't just buy a hotel to buy a hotel. We need the wraparound services that go with it. And that's where our nonprofits need to step up and step in. And not to give it back, I wanted to praise Kevin. Okay, I wanted to say thank you, Kevin, because Kevin did fight for some of those dollars at the state to allow us to do that. And I think that's important to recognize. I'm sorry, Georgia. Sorry. Thank you.
Thank you both. I know it's hard to keep on time, but we have a lot of questions, so I'm going to be the bad guy. With that, we have our next question.
Good afternoon. My name is Sarah Verity. I'm representing AbilityPath. I'm the Director of Board Relations and Legislative Affairs. Thank you both for taking the time to be here today. AbilityPath has been a cornerstone of our community for over 100 years. We provide a lifespan of support services to individuals with special needs and developmental disabilities in the Greater Bay Area. Our mission is to empower people with special needs to achieve their full potential through innovative, inclusive programs and community partnerships. With educational, therapeutic, vocational, and family support services, we're distinctive in providing support to an individual through their lifetime. A skilled professional workforce is required to deliver person-centered, high-quality services. For too long, the rates funded by the state of California, which includes federal matching funds for the services we provide, have not supported reasonable wages for workforce members living, particularly in the Bay Area, serving folks with intellectual and developmental disabilities. This results in chronic staff shortages, leading to thousands of individuals with developmental disabilities without the services they need. As a member of Congress, what can you do to help nonprofits offer competitive wages to attract and retain skilled professionals?
Is it my turn?
Yes.
Okay, great. I have a little bit of a life experience. My sister for the last 16 years has been a teacher at the Jefferson Union High School District around special ed. She deals with children, adults in transition. It's a very, very difficult job, Sarah. But one of the things is the funding doesn't match with what they could potentially do. It just doesn't match up. And so one of the things I would look at is what's the appropriate funding stream to increase salaries? What's the appropriate funding stream to make sure that these programs can exist at a higher level? Working in this area is very, very tough. It's challenging. It's rewarding. But what I hear from my sister and many, many others is that the resources just aren't there to help people and to help them in a way where there's dignity, respect, and especially parents of those children as well. So we need to find
All right, time. Kevin.
So thank you for the question, Sarah. Thank you, more importantly, for your work. I go back to the Poplar Recare days with your organization. very familiar with your incredible services. And frankly, your organization is a conduit into my general understanding of IDD issues. I was proud to serve on the Select Committee on IDD in the California State Assembly. We pushed for an audit by the California State Auditor to look at rates in California. We pushed for the rate study, which is now gradually being implemented, which better accounts for regional cost of living differences. We did have a banner year last year in the California state budget, using some of that surplus to address some of these crucial issues. But look, more must be done. In fact, I'm in the process of crafting a letter right now to the Budget Subcommittee Chair to make sure that the DDS, the department, implements the audit recommendations which better capture the challenges facing providers in this space. So I'm going to continue to work that issue, and I'll work it at the federal level.
David.
Look, I think when it comes to this issue, it's an important issue that requires a lot of thought. You know, I think on a county level, you know, one of the things that we have access to is really using Measure K dollars, Sarah. And if there's a way in which we could create a carve out, that's something that I would be supportive of. Obviously, as you know, through Measure K, the tax supplement is about $96 million a year. But I would say to AbilityPath, I don't know if you're accessing that. Obviously, the supervisors, I sit on I'm the co-chair of that committee, but that might be a pathway forward in seeing what we can do to help through Measure K dollars, which I think would be beneficial.
Kevin.
I get it. So I get another 30. Is that it, Petra?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So thank you for that, Supervisor. And let me just say, I'm going to continue to work these issues. I was honored with a Lifetime Achievement Award. I'm always a little concerned when you get a Lifetime Achievement Award. I'm only 52. But for my work on IDD issues, I was so honored by that. I am hearing impaired. I'm hard of hearing. I have a sensitivity around disability issues generally, and you can really do some good work at the federal level when it comes to disabilities and that the broader umbrella of work in that space. And I look forward to doing that.
This time, Kevin will be the one to answer the question first.
Hi, sorry, I guess I'm next. Hi, everyone. My name is Jessica, and I'm the Government Community Affairs Manager for Northeast Medical Services. So as the name of my organization suggests, the next question is about healthcare. We are one of the largest federally qualified health centers in the United States, targeting the medically underserved Asian population. We're based in the San Francisco Bay Area. We'll have two clinics in your district, one in Daly City, as well as one in Visitation Valley. Overall, we serve over 67,000 unique patients annually. And as a safety health net clinic, FQHCs like NEMS participate in the 340B drug pricing program, which garnered bipartisan support in Congress and passed in 1992. This program requires drug manufacturers to provide discounts to certain types of safety net providers, such as FQHCs like NEMS. And then we're required to reinvest those savings into the community through non-revenue generating services, such as community health workers, specialty care services, or discounted or free medications to uninsured and underinsured individuals. Given that pharma has a strong presence in San Mateo County and San Francisco, how would you, as our representative, balance the needs of both pharma and the needs of safety net providers like NEMS and the vulnerable patients that we serve? Thank you.
Kevin, you're first.
Thank you, Jessica, for your good work. I look forward to touring your clinics. So let me just say, yes, there's a major biopharma presence in my hometown of South San Francisco, in particular, over 200 companies. I was the chairman of the Select Committee on Biotechnology, sharing with my colleagues in Sacramento all of the economic activity that's being done here in the San Francisco Peninsula, this being a hub. But I fully support the Inflation Reduction Act, the pricing controls, empowering Medicare to negotiate on drug prices. Seniors pay too much. under-resourced communities pay too much when it comes to drug prices. So I think those two things can coexist. Support for life sciences that is helping get us through this pandemic. Let's not forget about that. The science and the research that is getting us through this pandemic and saving, frankly, millions of lives across the globe, but also understanding that this sector probably has too much power when we're talking about drug pricing. So I support the Medicare negotiating pieces of the IRA and will continue to support those kinds of efforts in Washington.
Thank you, Kevin. David?
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm not taking any pharma PAC money. I'm not taking any corporate PAC money. The reason I'm not is I don't work for the corporations and I don't work for the biotech companies. I work for my constituents. And we've seen, and thank you, Jessica and Eddie, for all the work that you've done in NIMS, but I've lived firsthand what happens when hospitals close, when healthcare is in crisis. We really need to reform our broken healthcare system. And that's what I'm committed to. And so how do we do that? The size of your checkbook shouldn't equate to whether you have life-saving drugs. My office, just 3 weeks ago, there was someone getting cancer, going through chemotherapy. She couldn't afford it. There was some big issue. We went in, we worked with the doctor, we worked with the hospital. This is what we do. It's not about the size of your checkbook. We should be able to make sure that people have prescription drugs because it's the just and the right thing to do. And we shouldn't overprice them because that's morally and reprehensibly wrong. Thank you.
Well, I certainly agree with the spirit of those comments. And like the supervisor, I represent my constituents, 465,000 of them. And looking forward, when I transition to Washington, if I'm fortunate enough to be elected, I am going to aim to be on the Energy and Commerce Committee. I'll put that out there very blatantly, because this is the area that deals with life sciences, that deals with drug pricing, that deals with a panoply of issues that we actually specialize in to some degree on the San Francisco Peninsula. The great Anna Eshoo, who's endorsing my candidacy to serve with her in Washington, serves on that committee. I would love to get on that committee as well and do good policy work.
You know, one of the things I'm keenly focused on is how to get on the Medicare for All caucus. Throughout the United States, there have been so many unbelievable in rural and urban areas. How many hospitals have been closed? How many people have little or no access to drugs that can save their lives? Let's reduce, and I think Kevin talked about very good, the Inflation Reduction Act. I think that's a good step. But let's make sure that these medicines are available for everyone. Just because you live in a wealthy zip code shouldn't give you the right to have medicine to someone who may live in a zip code not as wealthy. Let's fix this broken healthcare system. I want to make sure that I join this Medicare for All caucus if elected to Congress to really work on some comprehensive policy that we can make sure that everyone has access to healthcare and not denied. Thank you.
Kevin?
So I thought I opened and did a rebuttal.
Sorry. Thank you, Jessica.
Thank
I mean, I'll
you.
take the 30 seconds, but I know we have lots of questions, so we'll keep it moving.
Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mary Dunbar, Chief Development Officer of Caminar. Caminar is a Bay Area mental health and substance use treatment provider, integrating compassion with science to deliver patient-centered care. In San Mateo County, we treat individuals with the most severe and complex mental health and substance use cases. And we provide housing, psychiatry, medication management, job and educational supports to create lasting wellness for our clients and the greater San Mateo community. We are facing a crisis of insufficient care for adolescents experiencing continued mental health issues. The COVID pandemic has exacerbated the crises of untreated depression and eating disorders, to name just 2 issues. More than 15% of youth in San Mateo County experience depression, and the rates for youth of color are substantially higher. Of the youth diagnosed, less than 40% received any treatment. Due to inadequate coverage of mental health care as compared to physical health care, we have a dangerous level of untreated mental health disorders in our young people. What are your plans to address this growing adolescent mental health epidemic?
Yes, it's me. Look, we have over in the state of California, we have over 5.5 million adults that have a mental health condition. To speak specifically about what you're talking about, we have 400,000 teenage Californians that have depression. And so this is an all hands on deck sort of thing. You know, one of the things I've been focused on the work with our county, with my colleagues, is really looking at what we can do around Cordilleras, right? What do we do around Cordilleras, which is basically we're taking a 100-year facility and making it a place where people can get treatment in a setting, pod-like setting, that is really sort of a new way of dealing with mental health. But what we need to do is we need to fund at a greater level in our schools. We need to make sure that we fund these resources. We can't expect teachers to be counselors or mental health professionals.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So thank you, Mary, for the question. I think this pandemic has shown a light on what is an ongoing mental health crisis and lack of resources where they're needed the most. At the federal level, a couple of notes. The Rise from Trauma Act, which gives grants to prevent childhood exposure to substance abuse, the Mental Health Reform Reauthorization Act of 2022, a couple of really important pieces of legislation that are moving. At the state level, I partnered with the Steinberg Institute, which has done good work on mental health policy at the state level, dealing with acute psychosis. This year, I co-authored legislation to implement the 988 suicide prevention line. We are in the process of implementing that. We're going to be implementing that in California. Of course, that's a national effort. This issue is personal to me, members of my own family with mental health issues. This is an issue that affects so many people, so many families. My hope is that we are getting to a better place with the good work of Caminar and others.
Mary, I'm really proud of the work that the county has done in this area. When we talk about mental health, we also have to talk about youth addiction. I was able, through an appropriation, to get through the Daly City Youth Health Center $1 million. That $1 million is specifically, I mean, we're able to do it throughout the county as well in other areas, but to really double down, not only in terms of the issues around mental health and addiction, but most importantly, the outreach. Outreach is critical. And you know, I sit on the board of the San Mateo Medical Center. We know how important the funding of mental health and the delivery of services, especially at the county hospital, and what it does to help people in crisis. Our main goal as policymakers is to make sure we fund these initiatives, but to make sure that we get people back to health. And let's not think that physical health is separate from mental health. The whole, your whole body, whether it's physical, mental, they're all intertwined. And so these require investments in counselors as such. So thank you so much.
Well, that's absolutely right. And one thing I would note, I think this really is one of those issues. You know, we talk about partisan politics in Washington. This, I think there's an opportunity here because mental health issues are so prevalent and don't know Democrat versus Republican. Everybody in their family knows somebody who has struggles with this issue. There is a bipartisan opportunity on this issue to make real breakthroughs with federal assistance. But as we all know, ultimately, these programs are executed on the ground through nonprofits like yours, Mary. But the federal government needs to be a partner in a bipartisan way.
Thank you. Thank you, Mary. Thank you, everyone, for your questions. Now we get to do the fun stuff, a really fast lightning round. You have 30 seconds to answer. And David, you'll be answering the first question first, which is just one thing. What is the one thing that you think most differentiates you from your opponent?
That's a really tough question to answer. I think we're aligned on a lot of the issues. As I mentioned in my opener, I think one of the big differences is that, and it's nothing, it's no affront to Kevin. I like Kevin. I think one of the big issues is just around leadership during the pandemic. Really stepping up and stepping in when people needed the county, and we were working those long hours, whether it was opening that regional operations center, was it how do you vaccinate all these people? How do you get booster shots? It doesn't just happen overnight. Requires a lot of effort. And then what do you do?
Sorry, 30 seconds is really short. Kevin, big differentiator.
Right. Well, experience still matters. And I've shown an ability to be effective in a partisan environment like Sacramento, 60 bills signed into law, major dollars delivered home to the district, working when necessary across the aisle to move business across the floor of the assembly, and just the nature of my experience and readiness to serve on day one. That's why Jackie Spear and Anna Eshoo and the Democratic Party are endorsing my candidacy. They know I'm ready to lead, and I'm ready to lead on day one. And I believe that differentiates.
Thank you. Okay, just one thing. What's one example of something that you've accomplished in your current elected position that addresses one of your policy priorities that you would carry over to the national level? Kevin, you're first this time.
Well, I mentioned the Disclose Act in my opening because it is a landmark piece of legislation. California has led on shining a light on who the actual funders are behind elections in California. So elections, issues, voting rights, democracy. I have a proven track record on those issues. And we actually have President Biden use the term semi-fascists. We have people that no longer believe in free and fair elections in this country, who don't adhere to the rule of law or the Constitution. We need champions for democracy. Defending democracy is job number one, and I have a track record doing it in California.
I like to fight a little. I like to fight for the underdog. I like to fight for a hospital that they were going to close, and we were able to get that hospital. It's called Scene Hospital. I like to fight. I like to take on issues that other elected officials are afraid of taking on. Mickelson Pool, where Sutter Hospital wants to close down a pool. It's these sort of things that I think is needed in Washington. I think we need someone who has the voice, who has the ability to raise issues that make people feel, quite frankly, uncomfortable. Thank you.
Okay, another, just one thing. What is one fun thing that you look forward to most doing when you move to Washington?
Is that
David.
me?
No, David first.
Okay, thank you so much. I always think about this. One fun thing in Washington, I'll tell you one sad thing, is, I have a young son. I always think about my son and moving to Washington, D.C. That weighs really heavy on my heart. But I guess one of the fun things that I would do is really, I'd like to take an extensive tour of the Smithsonian Museum. I think that would be something that I would enjoy. But the one thing of running for Congress. Okay.
Sorry. You're making me feel bad, but okay, Kevin, one fun thing.
Well, let me just say I share David's concern about the impacts on family. There's no question about it. I think the funnest thing I may do all week is flying back to the district to get home to my family, my twins and the constituents. As I look forward to serving in Washington, if I'm fortunate enough to be elected, when I think about fun, I would say making the congressional baseball team. If we're just talking fun outside of work, I may have aged out of that, but at least I'm going to try out, and we'll see if I make the team.
Excellent. Well, if you're there, we will be cheering you on. Next question. So in our last candidate forum, thank you for participating again. You said you'd meet with Thrive members on a relatively regular basis to hear our concerns about what's happening in the district. We totally appreciate that. We will absolutely hold you to it. My follow-up question is, when we do meet, what kind of snacks should we have?
What kind of snacks do you have?
What kind of snacks should we have when we meet?
You know what? I think what I would do is I would get you cookies and milk. You know, I think it would be so collaborative that we would sit down, we munch on cookies and milk. When I had a small business, when I got out of college, this is true. It was called cookiesandmilk.net. We used to deliver cookies and milk to tech companies. So I would definitely bring that back for you.
Thank you.
So I don't know if I could top that, but my mother-in-law is an incredible baker. And we are living in South San Francisco right now in my mother-in-law's house while our house across town in South City is being remodeled. So I think it's contributed to the 10 pounds I put on during this campaign, the level of baking that has been occurring in this house behind me. So I would say some of the best homemade baked goods for our meetings. And hopefully there are many back in the district come 2023.
Excellent. Okay, I have one more question on the quick ones, but this one goes back to serious, although I'm looking forward to all of these homemade baked goods. It sounds like we're good either way. So climate change is very important. We are all sitting in our houses right now, sweating, trying to look professional while we're dripping. Totally understand that. I think you both have shown that you understand climate change and that it's really important. We do hope that you will join us at the Climate Summit on October 3rd. We're really looking forward to hosting that and really talking about things locally. But when you go to Washington, there are other opportunities. And for this particular, for what we're doing, we're really focusing on the environmental justice organizations, because although climate is finally becoming something that people are really paying attention to, often the environmental justice kind of falls to the wayside. There's a group in Washington that's working specifically on that called the Justice 40 Initiative. We'd love to know if you would become a part of the Justice 40 Initiative, which seeks to send at least 40% of the benefits of federal climate investments to communities that are already overburdened with pollution and climate change. And we messed up our order a little, but I'm going to go to Kevin first.
Thank you for that, Petra. Absolutely, I would support that. What I want to acknowledge, though, is that sometimes San Mateo County doesn't benefit from the way certain funding formulas are structured. I've made that point tonight pretty clearly. So I would want to look at that issue, but most certainly, environmental justice needs to be at the absolute top of this agenda. And it's not just about an elite conversation. The communities that have the least amount of resources are those who will be most impacted by global warming, not just in America, across the world. We need to be sure we understand that fact whenever we're making climate policy.
Great, thank you so much. I think one of the issues is, I serve on the Bay Area Air Quality Management District. And what the Bay Area Air Quality Management District is, it monitors stationary and mobile sources. And what we've been able to do, and actually through the legislator, is AB 617, right? And really making sure that we program dollars to communities of color. And so where are they? Obviously, we have, East Palo Alto, we have Daly City. One of the largest polluters is the Port of Oakland, right? And so what do we do?
David, I'm going to have to cut you off. I'm so sorry. These were only the 30-second questions. Okay, but we're back to our 1 minute with a half-minute rebuttal. And so then you'll be able to talk more. And our next question is from Ben.
Good afternoon. My name is Ben McMullen. I am the Systems Change Advocate at Center for Independence of Individuals with Disabilities, where it is our mission to provide support services, community awareness, and systems change advocacy to promote the full and equal integration of people and participation for people with disabilities. The federal government has created an institutional bias in the Medicaid system. States are required to pay for long-term care in institutions, whereas offering the same services in community-based settings is optional. Home and community-based services are underfunded. What steps can you take as a member of Congress to ensure that we do not lose independent providers who support community living, thus home and community-based services?
Kevin.
Thank you, Petra. Thank you, Ben. It's wonderful to see you. I've had the opportunity of working with Ben over the years, and including elections access issues and a whole range of issues. Thank you for the good work CID does. Honestly, first thing I would do is sit down and meet with you, Ben, because you are on the front line of dealing with the downstream impacts of public policy and funding formula setting. So what I would want to do is do a deep dive on what those impacts are, and strategically approach this with the right committee chair, subcommittee chairs, and so forth. I have experience working through that legislative context, legislative process, passing a budget, modifying funding formulas. This gets down to the nitty-gritty of politics, the nitty-gritty of governance and legislating, where it's not always it's dense, it's detail-oriented, but it actually matters and has downstream impacts on people who need federal resources, Medicaid resources that funnel through the state of California. I might be able to use some relationships at the state level to help on that front as well.
You know, Ben, I think we really need to make sure that we invest in home and community-based services. I think really on the ground, people who are actually doing the work, you know, sometimes when it comes to these issues, the funding just isn't enough, right? And so realizing, working with allies and partners like yourself, how do we fund this appropriately, and how do we meet the need, and how do we meet demand? And so relying on your counsel as well as others, I think is going to be imperative in moving forward. But I see in this area, being underfunded seems to be a consistent problem, not just this decade, for past decades. So I think really looking at a way to fund it, really to expand services, not contract services, I think would meet the moment.
I think our timer is getting a little crazy, but we'll keep going. Kevin, you have a rebuttal?
Not really a rebuttal, other than I agree with the spirit of the supervisor's comments. And what I would just suggest is that the nature of my disability is different than perhaps the disabilities that CID works with, but it has given me a sensitivity as a policymaker around the whole range of issues affecting the disabled community. I'm proud of that Lifetime Achievement Award I got from the state association on these issues. I will make disability policy one of the key issues that I'm going to be working on in Washington because it's personal, and I think I've been effective in that space, and we'll take that advocacy to Washington.
Thank you. I'm sorry about the timer being a little funky, so we'll roll with it.
You know, one of the things I'd like to see expanded is really the role of our private partners and corporations in really lending support. I think that sort of private-public partnership is warranted. And if elected to Congress, one of the things that I would ask these corporations and businesses that are here in our district is to really step up and step in. And whether that's the employment piece, whether it's the funding piece, I do think in a county such as San Mateo County, and we do represent San Francisco, this county has tremendous wealth through these corporations, and they really need to step up to really help us with whatever ideas you want to move forward with in terms of funding. Thank you.
Thanks. So our timer, unfortunately, is having internet issues, so we'll figure it out. Okay, now we're ready for the next question.
My name is Alan Matlich, and I'm a volunteer with the San Mateo County chapter of Citizens Climate Lobby. Citizens Climate Lobby is an international nonprofit organization working to create the political will for a livable future. Specifically, we're working in support of legislation to charge fossil fuel companies a fee for the carbon emissions their products generate. Economists are in wide agreement that putting a price on carbon is our most effective tool for addressing the climate crisis. Unfortunately, the recently passed Inflation Reduction Act didn't put a price on carbon, except for a small fee on fugitive methane emissions. Clearly, much more can and must be done. So here's our question. What legislation would you like to introduce to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions? But also, how will you support a price on carbon?
Thank you so much, Alan.
Sorry,
Look,
I think it's actually Kevin who starts.
Sorry, Kevin.
Okay, no problem. I lost track too on that. So thank you, Alan, for the question. I support a carbon tax. I think it's the most efficient way by putting a price on carbon to transition this economy to 100% clean energy economy. I am deeply proud of the legislative session that we just came through, which wrapped last week at midnight, where we passed a whole slate of Governor Newsom-backed climate initiatives, creating buffer zones with sensitive receptors when it comes to drilling in the state, accelerating timelines. I mentioned that I was the architect of the climate resilience package that made it through the budget last year. So we have done great work in California. Washington needs to follow California's lead on this issue. Certainly encouraged by the IRA. It was the biggest investments in climate in national history, but so much more must be done given the scale of this challenge. $24 billion with a B is at risk just from sea level rise right here in San Mateo County. That's one county, $24 billion. We are not at the scale of the challenges we have on greenhouse gas reductions and resilience, and it'll be absolutely top issue for me in Washington.
Thank you.
Right next to, and
I'm
my
going
time
to-
still 7 seconds, right next to defending our democracy in terms of priority.
I'm going to be giving you all just 10-second warning since apparently the internet in San Mateo isn't always great. So David, you have a minute to answer the question.
Alan, we need to divest in fossil fuels and we need to do it right away. I encourage this treasurer to divest. The county should have not 1 cent of an investment in Exxon. No public institution, no city, there shouldn't be anyone investing in fossil fuels. And with all due respect, Alan, tax these corporations, tax them, tax Exxon, tax Shell, tax them. Because here's the problem. The problem is they carry so much influence, they spend so much money on lobbyists. What happens is once they get you into Congress, they're able to neutralize you. Day one, pass a tax. I think Ed Markey, as Senator Markey has been working on this issue. I think AOC has been working on this issue. Let's get out of the fossil fuel business. Let's start with clean energy. Let's start with
10 seconds.
vehicles. Thank you so much, Petra.
No, sorry, I said 10 seconds. I'm going to give you guys 10 seconds warning. So
That's okay. I want to be prompt. Thank you, Petra.
okay. Response, Kevin.
So the Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act, HR 2307 is currently in 2307, I should say, is currently in committee. It would bring America to net carbon zero emissions by 2050. If I'm elected, I will add on as a co-author on that legislation. We must do more, and the federal government has the wherewithal and ability to lead in a major way, and we need to use IRA as a starting point, not an end point.
10 seconds.
I'm good.
Okay. David, you have 30 seconds.
I think, Alan, this is the crisis that we're dealing with, right? It's like the Inflation Reduction Act has a lot of good things, but there's also a lot of bad things too. And not too many bad things, but there are things that just, we cannot, when it comes to legislation and moving a progressive agenda forward, we got to invest in electric vehicles. We have to invest. One of the things that drives me crazy, and this is off subject here, thank you, is this issue of having people drive to work. No, people don't have to drive to work. If they have the opportunity to work hybrid, let's lessen that carbon footprint. Let's be practical, and let's not contribute to the climate crisis. We have the technology to really make this, make our environment better. And now it's time for the federal government to step up. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ellen.
Hi there, my name is Keister. I'm FLY's director for San Francisco and San Mateo County. FLY's mission is to partner with youth to unlock their potential, disrupt the pipeline to prison, and advance justice in California and beyond. FLY has been working in San Mateo County for the past 15 years and in the Bay Area for the last 22 years. We work alongside young people impacted by the justice system, helping them advocate to get their needs met and transform our systems to become more equitable, just, and humane. The criminal legal system in the United States is characterized by stark racial disparities. California's youth incarceration rate is almost twice the average US rate, with racial disparities growing over the past several years. In San Mateo County, for example, 1 to 2% of our students identify as Black, but 12 to 20% of youth in the county's justice system identify as Black. Similarly, about 38% of students identify as Latinx, but 50 to 70% of youth involved in the justice system identify as Latinx. As a congressperson, what will be your priorities in addressing the racial disparities in our criminal justice systems, especially those affecting youth of color?
You guys want to know who's next, don't you? And it is David starts.
First and foremost, I've been working on closing juvenile hall. Let's close juvenile hall. Let's get our kids out of these cages. And so I've been working on it for 5 years, been working on it with the Juvenile Justice Commission. There is no place for our young people in juvenile hall. Got to think about juvenile hall, 150 people it can hold. It only holds maybe about 18 during the pandemic. It's 12 or 10. Juvenile justice, making sure that people who've suffered trauma aren't re-traumatized. What we need to do is to close juvenile hall right away. And we're going to do it. We're going to do it. We're going to do it. And we're on the path to doing it. We created a committee to look at it. And we're going to make sure that our kids are uplifted and they're not incarcerated behind these cages and these bars. And I'm committed to the juvenile justice work. We've made so much progress.
Thank you.
We'll continue to make progress. Thank you.
So thank you for the question, Kate. California has done, I think, some excellent work on criminal justice reform, investing in programs to reduce recidivism. Started under Jerry Brown, really in earnest, continued under Gavin Newsom with this legislative leadership. More must be done on this issue. We need to end the school to prison pipeline. There are laws in Oregon and Massachusetts, Connecticut that phase out requirements for on-campus police, making it a little more discretionary for superintendents. I think that can help in this regard. I want to say just on criminal justice issues more broadly, we have done some good work. I worked with Dr. Shirley Weber, my assembly colleague who's now the Secretary of State, changing standards on use of force, increasing funding for police training. I support a citizens oversight panel of the Sheriff's Department here in San Mateo County. So crime has become that issue that is rearing its ugly head in politics, but we can't retreat. We can have safe communities, but also move a criminal justice reform agenda. Those two things can coexist.
David?
Yeah, I'm really looking forward, Kate, to working with our new sheriff. I think that's really going to be imperative. I know that she is run on a platform of criminal justice reform. I think what we do as a county relative to deportation in the jails, I'm committed to introducing legislation. Interested in seeing what we can do. Working with Sheriff Corpus on these issues. Kevin had talked about civilian oversight. That's something I support, wholeheartedly support, and we're looking forward to working in a collaborative way with the sheriff on these issues.
Thank you.
Sheriff-elect.
Kevin, last 30-second rebuttal.
So thank you for that. Let me just say that Kate, I lost Kate. There you are, Kate. You're somewhere on my timeline. Let me just say, I have not dealt directly with your organization, and I want to meet with you. I want to get your opinion on how I can best advocate for you in Washington. Many of these issues emanate and are dealt with at the state level, with certainly some federal involvement and some federal bully pulpit action. But I want to work those issues, and you'll have my ear on how best to do that.
Thank you, Kate. We are close to the end. Now it's just a minute and a half closing statements from each of you. And as David started last time, Kevin, you are up first.
Well, thank you, Petra. Thank you, everyone assembled, for taking time on this warm afternoon to learn about your congressional candidates. David, good to share the stage with you. Thank you for your work. I want to thank you all for the opportunity to be with you today, to be a candidate. It is no secret that the peninsula is the epicenter of the affordability crisis, with housing out of reach for so many, healthcare costs, childcare, higher education, ever more expensive. You need someone who will bring your concerns to Congress and fight for an economy that truly works for all of us. We need a transition as a country to 100% clean energy, and the U.S. needs to follow California's lead on climate. You will have an absolute champion for democracy and voting rights, free and fair elections. You will have somebody who stands up to people who don't believe in the rule of law and the Constitution, who actively undermine and attack our government to try to undermine democracy in this country. This is the fight of our time. It's happening right now. You will have a champion in that regard. I am proud to bring a decade of service and experience in the state legislature to this race. I believe qualifications still matter when it comes to governing, and I've been preparing much of my professional life for this role. And please know you will have a deeply committed public servant representing your interests above all, and I would be honored to have your support, and wonderful to spend some time with you today, and look forward to earning your vote on November the 8th.
Thank you so much, Petra, and thank you all for being here. I'm running for Congress to ensure that we bring back again the middle class. When we talk about housing, making sure that those who are unhoused are housed, fixing a broken healthcare system, making sure that hospitals remain open. I'm focused on climate, making sure that we have policies that protect our children and our children's children. When I look at why I'm running, it's personal. It's personal because I've seen my friends who grew up here. They can't live here. We live in an unequal county. It's full of wealthy people, but the middle class is gone. I want to make sure that my son, if he's a teacher, he can live here, that he doesn't have to work in tech or doesn't have to work in biotech because he has a certain skill set. I want to make sure children have the opportunity to go to free community college. It shouldn't be based on your checkbook. America has always been based, we've always said, it's based on equality. It's based on equality. Well, if it's based on equality, let's work on policies that provide people housing, that provide them healthcare, the ability to live in a place where they grew up. And right now, the wealth in San Francisco and San Mateo County, there is no middle class. Let's invest in people. Let's invest in people, lower middle class. Let's provide opportunities. And how have we done it? We've done it by providing free Wi-Fi as a county.
Thank you, David.
We've done it by providing rental assistance. So we've proven it during the pandemic. We have proven solutions that worked and uplifted people. I want to bring that to Washington. Thank you, Petra.
Thank you. Well, Thrive, on behalf of Thrive, we'd like to sincerely thank both of you for taking the time to be with us today, for sharing your views on issues that were really specific and really important to our communities, and share your plans for representing us in Washington. We also want to thank, of course, and acknowledge our partners, Center for Independence of Individuals with Disabilities, AbilityPath, Caminar, Citizens Climate Lobby, Fresh Lifelines for Youth, Northeast Medical Services. And of course, I really want to thank the fantastic Thrive staff that has been working really hard behind the scenes, even when their internet was going funky, and just really keeping their cool. So I really appreciate them. And I want to thank all of you for attending and invite you to share this recording with your friends in English and Spanish. Join us at our upcoming candidate forums and all of our other events. You can find out more about us, of course, on our website. And we look forward to seeing you all again soon. And best of luck to you both